2025, it is upon us, and motorsports is about to get rocking. Daytona International Speedway VP Racing SportsCar Challenge, IMSA, will start its 2025 season with this fantastic series here at Daytona under some absolutely perfect weather conditions. And excitement, man, it is coming our way here shortly. Welcome in, everyone. Brian Till along with Ryan Marine. And Ryan, we're going to have a good time with these three different classes. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. But first, let's talk about Daytona International Speedway. It's the world center of racing, and the season starts here, like I said. VP Racing SportsCar Challenge, what an interesting racetrack this is, part of the oval and then the road course as well, just like we see in the Rolex 24, diving down off of the banking into turn one, down to the International Horseshoe. You can get some passing done there. Heavy braking in the West Horseshoe. Got to get that run out of 6 onto the Speedway, and maybe you can get it done going into the bus stop, but where you really want that run, Ryan, out of the bus stop, get that run back to the start-finish line, see the checkered flag, and be a winner at Daytona. Engines are fired. Are you excited? Because I am.
Of course I am. Can't wait to get started. Brand new season for the VP Racing SportsCar Challenge, and some changes in the off-season as well, with an additional class this year, the new edition of GTDX, a class for GT3 spec cars like the GTD classes that you see in the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. They fit right between the two other classes that we're accustomed to, LMP3 and GSX, and I'm fascinated to see how that plays out in the race today.
I noticed the red prototype of Matt Dickin, I believe the 36, having a hard time getting started. That's going to be a problem for him. You talk about that new third class, though. I love this series for a couple of reasons. One, the racing is always good as they work on trying to get that engine fired aboard the number 36 there for Matt Dickin. But it's one of those series that if you run in Michelin Pilot, if you run in WeatherTech, you've got an opportunity to race again on the weekend. Your car, 45 minutes. You're not sharing it with anybody. Sprint stuff, and for these silver and bronze drivers that we see in the series, it's a great opportunity to go racing, kind of learn your trade a little bit better, practice a little bit more on the weekend, and then apply it in another series if you want to do that.
There are quite a few that are using this series for exactly that this weekend. Adam Adelson, who starts on pole in GTDX, we don't know if he's going to do more VP Racing races later this season, but he wants this as a tune-up for the big show, for the Rolex 24, and he has a chance to bring home some hardware in Daytona, starting on pole for Wright Motorsports.
And I think this is going to be interesting this year, that GTDX category. They are GT3-based machineries, the GSX that fans have seen in VP Racing SportsCar Challenge over the last 3 seasons now. Those are GT4-based cars. The GTDX is just slightly slower than the Prototype 3, considerably quicker than the GSX car. So multi-class racing, not only are you learning about driving your car and your racecraft within your class, if you want to move up to WeatherTech, you're in the deep end here, and the deep end is not so good right now for Matt Dickin.
Yeah, you hate to see this. For Matt, newcomer to the championship, this is the Rafa Racing team, run by the team that used to be known as Smooge Racing. It's a partnership between Rafa Martinez and Kevin Conway's Smooge Racing Group. Their first time running an LMP3 car. It's gone so well in the build-up to the race, but of course here on the grid, some kind of an issue, and that team's going to have to scramble to get that car ready to go to take the green flag.
Yeah, it just seems like they can't get fire in that engine, and if he can get it started, he can get back around and get into this race. You want to get that lap time in. Remember, this is the first race of the championship, so you got a long way to go. Get it done. Make up the points that you can make up here. You've got a long season ahead of you. Don't throw it all away. Hopefully they can get that engine fired and get out there on the Speedway.
That has to be the goal, but you want to start with some momentum. You want to start with wind in your sails. How many people over the years have started off strong at Daytona and used that to boost them in a championship bid? Doesn't look like that car is going to be ready to take the start, at least with the rest of the LMP3 class, but we hope that Matt Dickin can get on track here shortly. Lights out on the safety car, Brian. We're about to go racing.
Yeah, we're about to go racing. You see the order there on the pylon to the left of your screen as you were watching, and here we go. Teammates on the front row out of the Gebhardt Intralogistics Motorsports Group, I should say. The only 2 Duquesne chassis in the field, Ryan, and I will tell you from a historical perspective, this racetrack and Duquesne, they get along really well.
Yeah, the Ligier has a reputation of maybe not being the most slippery through the air. It's great on tight, twisty tracks. Here at a place like Daytona or at a place like Le Mans, it hasn't always been the best, but the Duquesne, this is right in its wheelhouse, and it's a pair of Duquesnes on the front row.
19-year-old Valentino Catalano on the pole in that red and white Duquesne. He pulls the trigger. He has gone slight gap to the GTDX field. That is what the race directors wanted. Gives everybody a chance to get down into turn one, and already Marcus Palmer aboard the purple Duquesne just behind teammates once again. He's 33 years old. Catalano's 19. So we've got some experience in the second place car and some youthful exuberance out front.
And they know each other really well. They teamed up to win a Prototype Cup Germany championship a year ago. They debuted in this series at Motul Petit Le Mans last year, running the 2 races at Road Atlanta. But right now, they're out in front, and those Duquesnes are sprinting away from the rest of the LMP3 pack.
Good battle for third as well. The 77, Brian Thenis, longtime competitor here in this class, leading that charge. But right behind him, the 54. If you're a fan of VP Racing SportsCar Challenge, why wouldn't you be? That 54, you'll recognize it as the championship-winning car from 2024. So MLT Motorsports puts a really, really powerful package on the racetrack right now, and Jonathan Woolridge trying to make the best of it.
That's right, new driver this year, Stephen Agakani, not returning to defend his title, so the Canadian Jonathan Woolridge, who ran a partial schedule last year, jumps aboard. Battles breaking out in the GT classes as we turn our attention back to LMP3. First time approaching this newly reprofiled Le Mans chicane.
Nice move there. You see Thenis slip back a little bit. The 80 moves forward. That's Brady Golan.
Yes.
Aboard the 80. He started last in the LMP3 category, but that's not where he qualified, right?
No, he was set to qualify third, but a penalty put him to the back. They missed the grid, so he has to come a long way from the back of this LMP3 field. But that car has been super quick. They've been the best of the Ligiers in the build-up to this race, and Golan on a move early. It only took him 1 lap. He's back to third.
Well, and again, it's about staying cool, calm, and collected, right? I mean, it's one of those deals where you just have to put the problem behind you and focus forward. Remember, Brady Golan has won at Daytona International Speedway before in that massive fuel-saving run that Kelly Moss did last year to win in Michelin Pilot Challenge. Look at this.
Little contact between 2 BMW M4s deep in the pack that kicked Chris Walsh out wide. Chris Walsh making his series debut. This is the GSX class for GT4 spec cars. And down in front, it's Kiko Porto, the pole sitter, coming over from Lamborghini Super Trofeo a year ago.
Jackson Lee aboard the number 2 Porsche, now slotted in second in that group that heads down towards the kink. And I think one of the things that we've seen for both the BMWs and the Porsches here is maybe not the top speed that these drivers want. The Toyotas seem to be blazingly quick, but Jackson Lee doing a good job. Did not have the first practice session that he wanted, had some issues there, some little niggling things that they got sorted out. Qualified reasonably well, and now it's time to go racing.
Yeah, getting some help as well from his CSM teammate, Robert McGinnis, who's racing for this same team, but in Michelin Pilot Challenge this year. And Robert helped him look at some data, look at some video, and that certainly helped Jackson get up to speed. But a great battle here on the high banks.
This is good stuff. That's Patrick Wilmot aboard the number 12 BMW there. And you think about it, he's doing battle right now with Gregory Lafouge in the 43. Wilmot didn't even know that he was going to be here until, I think, what, Wednesday, maybe?
Yeah, it was late coming together, and he's going up against one of these Ford Mustangs that have been super strong, especially in Michelin Pilot Challenge so far here this weekend. But Lafouge dropping back a little bit at the start of this race. That comes as a surprise. The Stephen Cameron team looked pretty switched on with this car in the build-up.
And they always are. Stephen Cameron runs a great program. Now you're going to get an idea. A little drafting work. Lafouge trying to go to work there on the BMW in front, and then back up front. Toyotas. We talk about how strong that they are. The 8, Kiko Porter, under attack right now by the 76 of Clemens.
Kiko's been the quickest GSX car in every session so far. Clemens maybe was keeping his powder dry a little bit. This is the most muscle that he's been showing over the course of the weekend so far. Cool to see the BSI team, which you might recognize from MX-5 Cup or from Toyota GR Cup, making the step up here to VP Challenge. And right now, Clemens looking right at home home in this Supra, putting the pressure on Kiko Porto, the Brazilian.
Hey, you know what, Ryan? It's not just about making the car go fast on the racetrack. You need to know the rules as well. Just got a message. The 31, that's second place of Marcus Palmer, and the 54 of Jonathan Woolridge will receive a 10-second post-race penalty for changing columns before the line.
Yeah, I did wonder about that. We saw Catalano get that great start, and immediately his teammate Palmer dropped right back in line, but that was before they got to start-finish, and that's what the stewards are looking for.
Yeah, and it's difficult for a racer, and the rules right now in sports car racing in the U.S. are pretty consistent across different series. So you need to kind of remember that. You cannot change the column before the start-finish line. Take a look at the start. The 31 is the car, your left, the purple car. They're coming to the line, and there it is.
And
Drops
Woolridge,
down easily, yeah.
Woolridge did the same thing
Yeah,
in the silver
yeah.
MLT car. So now that really changes the equation here when we're talking about a 10-second post-race penalty for the likes of Golan and Thenis, etc. They just need to stay in striking distance. And the other thing that you have to consider if you're one of these drivers with that penalty hanging over your head, should this race end behind the safety car, that becomes extra punitive because the gaps all come down.
It's brutal when you have that time penalty. You can kind of work through it. You know it happened on lap one. Maybe I can make some time. Maybe I can increase a gap, whatever, and it doesn't hurt me so bad. But you said it. If you end under full course caution, you may be third in the line, but 10 seconds may move you all the way to the back of the line. So these drivers will have to work through it. I get Marcus Palmer a little bit. They've only run one IMSA weekend. That was at Petit Le Mans last year in VP Racing SportsCar Challenge. So these rules a little bit new to them, but for Woolridge, he's got more experience in the IMSA paddock, and that's just a mistake on his part.
Yeah, made 6 starts last year in this series, so you're right. You would think they would know that. How about the Toyotas, though? Ian Porter at the number 68 has just driven his Rafa Racing Team Supra up to third, so it's now Supra 1, 2, 3 here in GSX.
And if you recognize the name Ian Porter, you may very well do that, and you may recognize that he is no stranger to going to battle, right? Did I lead into that pretty good?
That was a great segue from you, Brian. He is a 3-time world champion in Call of Duty. Have you played Call of Duty much?
I don't want that. I don't want my 24-year-old son to hear that because he plays Call of Duty all the time.
So
I don't want him to know that, I don't want him to know he can make a living doing it.
Well, if you're as good as Ian Porter, you can. 3-time world champion, 38 times he won titles of various descriptions, but always had an interest in motorsports. And he's got quick hands. I saw him last year in Porsche Sprint Challenge where he won on debut, never finished first then third. His hand-eye coordination is great. He said the thing that he's had to adapt to is the foot controls. You don't have to deal with that in Call of Duty.
This is interesting. That is the worst corner on the racetrack to make a mistake on, that or turn 6, because it kills the momentum. But I'm going to see what kind of speed the Toyota has. He was at a detriment with that mistake, and Wilmot's gotten by him, a problem for Frank Depew.
Yeah, tough to see that for the Rebel Rock Racing driver. It was a little ways down the order anyway. I think we've got to look at what happened to Frank.
Let's take a look. This is a very different Le Mans chicane. There's a look at Porter with that big slide. That's what's going to give Wilmot the drive off the corner. And then Depew's a little further behind them. What's the problem here? Oh, I think that's Matt Dalton. He and Matt Dalton trying to go side by side through the Le Mans chicane, the bus stop, whatever you want to call it. Maybe some damage there on Dalton's car, but it's a very, I don't want to say a different layout. It's a different look this year in the bus stop. The curbing is different, and indeed the BMW comes to pit road. I think Depew does as well, but it's a very, very different look, and all the drivers have said going through there side by side this year may be very difficult. We just saw that it is.
From what the drivers have told me, the geometry of the corner has not changed, but it's that curbing and it's the sight lines. You used to have the grass as a reference point. That's now gone, and especially at night, which won't really affect it here, but the view going in is totally different, and of course, those curbs have the chance to be very punishing as well.
Well, and you know, when you have a problem on the racetrack, you don't want to come in and be pitted next to each other, right? But there they are, and two of the nicest guys in the world. Frank Depew, he doesn't make his living driving race cars. Matt Dalton doesn't either, you know. So two guys that do this for the love of it. But Yeah, it looks like this new layout there in the Le Mans chicane has kind of reared its ugly head.
For viewers that are wondering, there was a Joe Dalton that raced in this series last year. It's actually the same guy. Joe is Matt's given name, but he honors his late grandfather by racing under the name Matt. So it is, in fact, the same person, but does have a long history of racing.
I obviously know Matt Dickin, and I walked up to him today, and he goes, "Oh, great to see you." And I said, "Who are you? Are you Joe?" And he's like, it took him aback for a minute, and I said, "Matt, what was with the Joe thing last year?" He goes, "I don't know. It's actually my first name, you know." And so I just used it last year, and I said, "Well, obviously you're not a very good criminal, because if you were going to change your name to try to be incognito, you didn't do it very well."
No,
Super
and now
guy.
we just spilled the secret anyway.
Yeah, we just did.
Battle for the lead in GSX. This is good stuff. Kiko Porto has led from the drop of the green, but he's got his hands full right now, Brian. Stephen Clemens looking right at home in his first ever start in a GT Supra.
Well,
bad news for Dalton here. I did wonder if there was significant left front damage, and I think there might be.
You look at Kiko Porto and the time that he turned in qualifying. 1.4 seconds and change ahead of second place. I don't know whether he found a lap and used the draft to kind of get it, but 1.4 seconds is unheard of. Now, when we look at him running nose to tail with another Toyota, you don't see any really main speed differential. And for Clements, doing a great job. But, man, what a blistering lap in qualifying. And there is your GTDX leader, Adam Adelson, champion in SRO World Challenge last year. He and Elliott Skier. He's going to run here, like you said. Is he going to run all year in VP? You know what? When you win, it makes it a little more attractive, doesn't it?
That's basically what happened with their WeatherTech program last year. They were planning on doing the Endurance Cup races, but things were going so well, they ended up doing every race bar the Canadian round last year. But they're loaded for bear, focusing in on that WeatherTech Championship title tilt this year. But that said, if he starts to collect some hardware, and he's out in front by a healthy margin right now in GTDX, if you could believe it, it's over 19 seconds his lead already in class.
Yeah, it was an impressive job that he did in qualifying. I was interested to see what A.J. Muss was going to be able to do in his Ferrari, working his way back up. You know, they said that one of the weak links, if there is such a thing, on that Ferrari 296 is the clutch, and that's really what got him in qualifying. Clutch was hot, came into the pit lane, stopped, and couldn't get the car to move, and then with it not moving, he said, well, I'll just get out of it, which you can't do. And as soon as he stepped out of it, his qualifying lap that had him on pole was gone, and he had to start at the back. I thought he might be able to move forward and use some of that speed that he had, but he just wasn't able to get it done. I'll tell you what, though, when you think about what A.J. Muss has done over the last several seasons in TCR, Lamborghini Super Trofeo, the improvements that we've seen have just been remarkable. I think he's a much more heady driver. I think he's always had kind of the athletic ability and the understanding of the process. But now I think there's a lot more cerebral approach to it, and it pays off in the lap time.
Well, that comes with experience, right?
Sure,
he came to this late after a great career as an Olympic snowboarder, but made his racing debut, half-decade or so ago, and it's always been sporadic starts here and there until last year. And I think it's no surprise that on the strength of a full season running a Lamborghini Super Trofeo, where he won a Pro-Am championship last year, having that consistency of doing a full season, getting to work with a team over the course of the ups and downs of an entire year, an entire campaign, that's going to prepare you so much more than just making a start here, a start there.
Yeah, Samantha Tan doing a real good job. We saw her aboard the number 38 STR BMW. She's up into third in GTDX, but this fight, man, the question is, these Michelin tires here at Daytona is a pretty, at times it seems low grip, especially when it's cold in the night for like the Rolex 24, but it's pretty aggressive. And certainly for the P3 cars, you can burn off rear tires. It's interesting the pace that we're seeing right now with Clemens and Porto. It'll be interesting to see if they're taking the go fast out of those Michelin tires, and it's like, who's going to take better care of them? Is it Porto from being in front, or is it Clemens with the attack that he's put on? You know, who's going to have the tire to get it to the end?
It's a good question, and neither of these drivers have much experience at all on this Michelin rubber, nor do they have much experience with multi-class racing. Yeah. Both of them come from single-make racing or open-wheel racing in the case of Kiko Porto. So when those LMP3s start coming through, when the GTDX class starts to come through, plus when we get into a spot with the tires that they've probably never experienced before in race conditions, everybody's going to be taking a step into the unknown.
IMSA Racing underway for the 2025 season. It all starts right here, the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway. Brian Till, Ryan Marine with you at VP Racing SportsCar Challenge, and seen this series grow. Remember, Ryan, when it was Prototype Challenge and then the GT4 class got added, it became VP Racing SportsCar Challenge 3 seasons ago. Now we've had 2 seasons of that. Now we've added the GT3 based cars. And what we're seeing is exactly what we thought we would see, and that's some great racing.
It's gone through a few different iterations, but this does feel like a pretty good sweet spot for the series when you've got an entry-level prototype like the LMP3. You've got then the crossover here with GTDX and GSX, where drivers can get some extra seat time here and use that in preparation for a WeatherTech program or for a Michelin Pilot Challenge program, or simply to go for VP Challenge honors in its own right. That is a significant achievement on its own, and it only gains in prestige over the years.
Number 8 of Kiko Porto out in front in GSX. Rafa Racing is the entrant on that car. Clemens in a BSI Racing car. Now, obviously, you know, if you're piloting one of those cars, that winning at Daytona is important for Toyota. But you also know this from all your years in motorsport. Are those 2 drivers even thinking about Toyota right now, or are they thinking about me?
Well,
they're thinking about me, the guy that's behind the wheel. They want the win. I'm not sure they care about Toyota right now.
If I know anything about racing drivers, Brian, and I'm sitting next to one.
Why are you patting me on the back?
I'm sitting next to one right now. It does tend to come back to me at the end of the day.
Yeah. Sometimes, sort of, definitely. Good battle here. Samantha Tan there in the 38, that BMW, and that team does such a great job wherever they place a car in whatever series. They know the BMW platform well. And tell you what, also talking about AJ Musk coming along as a driver, Samantha Tan in the last 2 seasons to me has just improved by leaps and bounds.
It's an amazing story where she has used the motorsports ladder system to perfection, starting off in touring car racing, very grassroots, building up through GT4 into GT3. She's raced overseas, she's raced in the States. That team has run everything from Ferraris to BMWs all over the world. They're the real deal, and we got to swap for the lead in GSX. Speaking of the real deal, this battle continues to rage.
I didn't see it happen, but, you know, what the young drivers need to think about right now is, if I'm Kiko Porto, I'm like, okay, all right, I want it back, but now I have to think, when do I want it back, right? This racetrack, known for its high speed and the banking out of 6 to the bus stop and out of the bus stop to the line, where do you want to be on the last lap? I know where you want to be at the line, right? But where do you want to be coming out of 6? Do you want to be the leader, or do you want to be in second place to take care of that, see if you can use the draft? Here's how he takes the lead. Speaking of the draft, yeah.
That was textbook.
Yeah. Easy peasy, right? I mean, that's what it looked like. So file that away in your mind for both of those drivers. And I'll go back to the question, where do I want to be?
Well, I get the sense that Stephen Clemens was sizing exactly that thing up in the build-up to making the move, but I'm not sure that this is anything more than an academic discussion at this point, because look at him build a gap here, even on the banks when you would think there would be some of that slipstream effect. That BSI car is a rocket ship right now.
It is a rocket ship, and we talked about this earlier, right, about the tire. How much of it do you use, and who was using more of that Michelin tire? The leader trying to hold down that point, or the pursuer who sat there and ran behind him? The overall leader right there, the number 30, Valentino Catalano, he knows he has his teammate behind him, but he also knows that the 31 of Marcus Palmer is going to have a 10-second penalty added. So I would think, if we look at it right now, Brady Golan sitting in a good position to take over that second place when they hand out trophies at the end of this race, but we still have a ways to go.
Yeah, Golan doing exactly what he needs to do. He's well within that 10-second margin of the 31 car that has that penalty coming his way. So it looks like at the moment as they run, Palmer would still be in a position to stay on the podium, but all of that goes out the window, as we discussed earlier, if there were to be a safety car intervention.
Well, we talk about multi-class racing and looking to the future and drivers, some of these young drivers wanting to move up. Here it is. I mean, this is something that you would see in the Rolex 24, something that we'll see next weekend.
Yeah, exactly. This is invaluable experience for a driver, young or otherwise, that is aspiring to get to the WeatherTech SportsCar Championship in the future. You might not be in the top class when you get there, but there's something about having the experience of coming through traffic that helps you if you end up in a slower car, and vice versa. Drivers often talk about making that transition, maybe from a GT to a prototype. They know what the driver in the GT is going through, and that helps them make smarter decisions in traffic when they do get the chance in the higher class.
And a lot of people, it's real easy to look at it and go, well, it's the guys in the prototype that have the hard work because they're sliding through traffic. Well, if you're in a GSX car, you're battling with other people, and GTDX is faster than you, and prototypes are faster than you, you've got to know how not only to pass and do battle within your class, you need to know how to be passed. And I know that sounds odd, but you've got to think about, okay, there's a prototype coming by, and you'll see this all the time in the WeatherTech Championship, especially with factory drivers in the GT category. They'll block, they'll move, they'll feint, and they'll say to a GTP driver, I know you're coming by, but you're not going to do it here because it's going to cost me too much time. I see you. I'm going to let you go when we come off of this corner, but you're not going to stick it in there right now because it's going to put me offline. It's going to slow me down, and I've got my own battles to think about. So it's about battling on the racetrack with your competitors, but it's also about understanding how to be passed.
Yeah, to your point, it's if you're in the faster class car, you're only looking in your mirror if you're in battle with someone. Otherwise, it's straight out the windshield. If you're in any of these other classes, and sometimes I think the middle class is actually the hardest place to be because you're passing and being passed all the time. You have to live in the mirror. You also have to be looking out the windshield. You have to be aware of the battle that you're in amongst your own class cars. That is part of the thrill, though, of multi-class sports car racing, endurance racing. It's what sets it apart and always seems to spice things up in the most unexpected of times.
Remember, I was talking about AJ Moss a little while ago, and I thought maybe he would have moved up a little bit more. Well, somebody lit the fire underneath him because his Ferrari is on it now, and he is beginning to pick up positions. He's gotten past Samantha Tan. He is the red Ferrari just in front of that white, black, and yellow number 38 BMW as they head into the kink. The Ferrari just in front of him, another red Ferrari, imagine that, right? Is Matthias Perez-Kambach. So the 50 now in the sights of AJ Moss.
Well, AJ's taken a really patient approach to this, and I give him credit for it. It would be easy to be frustrated losing pole on, it's not a technicality because it's a rule, but
yeah,
just getting out of the car before you're allowed to at the end of qualifying when he had put the lap in, and it was only a matter of less than a minute, right, before he would have been allowed to get out of the race car. So it'd be easy for the red mist to sink in and you to drive angry a little bit, but he's done anything but. He's been really, really patient, and that has been impressive. One story we haven't touched on yet, speaking of Ferraris, these aren't red, though. This is the father and son, Dave Musial, and it's on the entry list as Dave Musial Jr., Dave Musial Sr. Technically, he's not a junior. They don't share a middle name, so Dave the Younger likes to go as Dave 2.0. And conveniently, he put it on the race car for us.
I like it. Yeah, he's number 20, so he's 2.0. The question is, so right now, Dad is out in front, a lot of experience. Ferrari Challenge, so they understand this 296 Ferrari. Obviously, a little bit different here in this trim, but they understand the basics of this Ferrari. And it's all okay when you show up on the first weekend. There it is. But when they've raced at Ferrari Challenge, they've raced in different classes.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering when we get to the end of the season what Thanksgiving dinner is going to be like, you know, now that they're racing against each other. Oh, man. The 95, Vin Barletta really in there deep, and I don't think he was thinking about making the move, Ryan. I think that was a defensive move to go around the outside and try not to collect. Usually it was 2.0,
right.
I should say, just
right.
in front.
Yeah, that looked like an evasive maneuver that almost ended in tears. Kyle Washington at the tail end of that train. It's a nice little battle there, 6th, 7th, and 8th in GTDX. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting dynamic, father and son racing head-to-head against one another. It could be fun to watch over the course of the season.
All right, think about this. Look at these gaps here between 2nd and 3rd overall. The leaders come by the line one more time. Catalano out in front in the red, number 30, and then his teammate in the 31, Marcus Palmer, just behind. We know Palmer has that 10-second penalty. Right now, if I'm Marcus Palmer, I'm thinking, I'm not going to win this race unless something happens to my teammate. So we need to hook up and we need to go, because he needs a few more seconds over Brady Golan if he wants to stay in 2nd in the championship. I think he's okay for a podium finish when you look back to Woolridge, who's in 4th, but he's thinking, come on, buddy, let's hook up and get down these straightaways, see if we can kind of run nose to tail and begin to pull away from Brady Golan a little bit. I don't want to lose my 2nd place finish here with that 10-second penalty.
It's 7 seconds between Palmer in 2nd and Golan in 3rd. He needs to get it up over 10 seconds. Again, that penalty comes from the very start of the race. He was deemed to have switched columns at the initial green flag before getting to the start-finish line, which is a no-no. And so now with that 10-second post-race penalty looming, you're right, these two need to hook up. I'll give Golan credit, though. First of all, he came from the back. Let's not forget that, to get up to 3rd. Spin for the 89X car, newcomer to the series. But quickly back to the Golan story. He's been able to hang closer to the Duquesnes than any of the Ligier runners have over the course of this weekend so far. He's doing a really nice job.
So that was Chris Tosca around in the 89, the Aston Martin. And again, I think that bus stop is so different than the drivers have seated in the past. And like you said, visually, I don't think it's any different from a layout standpoint. The geometry of it, obviously the curbing is different. The grass is gone on the inside, and they put some big bumps behind the apex curbings to dissuade you from shortcutting or going past track limits at the exit. And I just think it's very flat looking now. There's not a lot of visual cues to kind of let you know where you are, especially at nighttime. Obviously, we don't have to worry about that here, but it's bitten a lot of drivers this weekend. I think we're going to see the same thing next weekend. One driver it has not bitten is Adam Adelson, and I love what he's done, and we've talked about this with Samantha Tan, with AJ Moss. Adam Adelson is another one of these drivers that we've watched come up. It's really interesting. Elliott Skier, who's been his partner in crime over the last several seasons in the different series in which they've run, has always been that steady hand that's kind of helped guide Adam Adelson. And I was talking to Elliott, he got moved from silver to gold. And I said, I know that can kind of affect opportunities. With a silver, you've got some opportunities to do some things that you can't do as a gold level driver, but it wasn't for you kind of an acknowledgement of what you've done and what you deserve. And he said, quite honestly, yeah, I accepted it. I knew I was going to get changed, and quite honestly, it gave me kind of the recognition that I felt like maybe some people hadn't given me in the past for what he had done.
It's such a refreshing story as well when we're talking about Elliott Skier, because how many times, Brian, over the years have we seen someone with clear talent but without the funding just have their career whittle away, disappear, right? And that's what it looked like was going to be the case for Elliott, but thanks to this partnership with Adam Adelson, the sky's the limit. They have big plans.
And again, back to multi-class racing, as we were talking about all of that, we watched the battle of the two Ferraris. That's Perez Kompach and AJ Moss working through there. Samantha Tan holding on to the back of that group, but they were working past the GSX cars. We saw, I think Porter was in there, Jackson Lee aboard the number 2 Porsche from CSM. I mean, this is what these drivers are going to learn as they try to move their career along, and some of them definitely with sights set on the WeatherTech Championship.
I do wonder how much multi-class racing Samantha has on her CV. I know she's done things at the Nürburgring, so there's lots of multi-class there, but the majority of what she's done has been in GT World Challenge, whether America or Europe, where that is multi-class in the sense that you have different classes based on driver pairings, but not away from the GT3 platform.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a different ball game, and I think that's exactly why this team, this group, looked at this and said, this is a good place for you to be if you want to continue that upward movement in your career. And tell you what, I mean, I said it a minute ago, her ability behind the wheel is just ever improving. We saw Musk get to that position and get to the back of the 50 of Perez Compound. He hasn't been able to do anything with it. And Samantha Tan has gone absolutely nowhere. She stayed right there with him. They make a mistake, she's going to pick up a position.
Definitely. This is an interesting dynamic because the gap from second to third has come down.
Yeah.
So this changes the team dynamic here between Palmer and Catalano. Palmer actually led at the line the last time by 23 thousandths of a second, so they were probably side by side. Very similar to this. This is not what he needs. They don't need to be squabbling here.
No, they don't. And, you know, I talked about it earlier with Palmer being 33 years old, a little more experience. He gets caught on the high side, see if he can get undercut here going out of one. He's the more experienced driver, right? And you would think a little headier than the 19-year-old of Catalano behind the wheel. And what Catalano needs to understand is even if his teammate gets in front of him, he's going to win the race for all intents and purposes unless there's a problem, because that 10-second penalty looms for Palmer. You would think that they might say on the radio, hey, Valentino, let him go. Let's see if we can get first and second, because we need him to have that lead. And right now, the gap between second and third is closing down. See if we can't get Marcus out there and let him get that 10 seconds in hand. And then as a team, we will have first and second. You'll still win this race,
right, even
if it doesn't happen on the racetrack. The question is, can the 19-year-old accept that, right? I mean,
what were we saying earlier?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not belittling him at all. At all. It's just sometimes there is a bigger picture that from the cockpit we just don't see.
And that's what the team is on the radio there to try and communicate with the driver. Whether the message is received, that's another question. But you can see the yellow prototype in the background there starting to loom a little bit larger, and that is Grady Golan, who lap by lap is just chipping away. It's not likely to be enough to challenge for the outright lead of the race, but it's more than enough to challenge for second with that time penalty factored in. Side by side here, Perez Companc, AJ Muss. This is a great duel down to the Western Horseshoe. Man, great run by Muss. Really came off the West Horseshoe with a run, kind of on the high side. And I've got to wonder, again, we talked about tires earlier. This is a 45-minute sprint race. We've got 12 and a half minutes to go. You do have to take care of the equipment. You've got to take care of the tires. These Michelin tires are fantastic. There is some drop-off. You expect that on any racing tire, but you've got to understand when that drop-off is going to come, and you've got to maintain and really think about how you want to use that Michelin rubber, because you need some at the end. And I'm kind of thinking that perhaps Perez Companc has used up his tires, and now Samantha Tan is ready to attack. Yeah, she's right there in the slipstream. Couldn't be two more different greenhouses of race cars. The Ferrari 296, the BMW M4 GT3, but because of the IMSA balance and performance system, here they are racing on pretty darn equal footing. Samantha closes in, but that Ferrari seems to have the legs at the end of the straightaway. Right there at the end, and it's funny, people talk about top speed, and I'm like, top speed has little to do with it. A lot of it is how fast do you go fast. You know, you can have two cars that do the exact same top speed. It takes one of them the entire length of the straightaway to get to that speed. The other one gets there very quickly, but then doesn't accelerate anymore, and now they've got half the straightaway to run at that speed. And I wouldn't want to have to do balance of performance, BOP. Much smarter people than I get it worked out, but I always look at the BMW, and especially over the last couple of years as that grill got bigger and bigger, I'm like, I'm sure on a CAD program somewhere it says this is okay, look at that. But to the eye, you just look at it and go, that's like a school bus. How can it go down a straightaway? That frontal area and that grill,
packing all that air in, but they get it sorted, they get it working.
And yet that's been the strength
Look at
of the
this drive off
BMW.
the corner.
Yeah, great crossover move from Samantha. Now, how do they navigate this traffic? This is Kiko Porto, second at GSX. Will Compact keep her down?
He needs to come
Use
down.
it as a pick.
Yeah.
Yes, he does. And Samantha has to breathe the throttle to settle back in line.
Yeah, you use that GSX car as a pick. I would have liked to have seen him just a little bit closer. She almost had the ability to kind of put the nose in there between them, close that off, use that traffic for a pick. But again, you look at the experience that Perez Compact has. He doesn't have that experience in multi-class racing. Certainly doesn't have experience on the high bank like this. So those are lessons that you learn. They'll go back, they'll watch the race, and they'll go, hey, maybe kind of close that down a little bit, get rid of that temptation, balk that run a little bit.
Random GT4 cars don't just turn up in a Ferrari Challenge race, to your point, and that's what Perez Compact comes from. So, yeah, that is a totally new experience, but he played it pretty well, was able to keep the BMW behind him. This is the battle, by the way, for the final podium position in GTDX, a chance to stand in the famous victory lane at Daytona International Speedway. That's no small feat, and that's what's at stake in this fight.
But for Perez Compact right now, he's kind of damned if he does, damned if he doesn't, right? Because I just watched him through 1 and 2. The car, to me, doesn't look particularly stable. I think he's used up his tires. He has to keep pushing to keep Samantha Tan behind him, but if he keeps pushing, he's going to wear the tires out even more, and this is a great battle in GSX. Jackson Lee, that red, white, and black 718 Cayman GT4 Club Sport leads this group, but man, you can throw a blanket over the 4 of them.
Oh, that's fantastic. So Jackson Lee, Chris Walsh, Justin DiBenedetto, and Rob Walker all together. We flash back up to this podium fight. 3rd and 4th at GTDX. Perez Compact has the spot. Samantha Tan's been working him over, but he's not going to roll over and have his belly scratched, is he?
No, he's not, and it's one of those things where I think she may have the faster car, but, you know, I've always said, hooking the fish is one thing, getting him in the boat is something else. I think she's got the fish hooked. She's there, and we're in Florida, why not use the fishing analogy, right? I think she's there, probably has the faster car, but she's being a student of what he's doing in front of her, and she's got to figure out where the opening is going to be and be ready to pounce when it happens.
She's going to want to do it soon because the purple Ferrari of Dave Musial Sr. is closing in.
That's what I said. I think she's got the faster car. She needs to get by.
Exactly right. 8 minutes still to go in this race, but at this pace, Musial could get there before it's all said and done. So a little extra motivation for her to make the pass.
Tell you what, how about some love for Clemens and GSX? That battle kind of went away between Clemens and Porto that we saw early on. And once Clemens got by, he is pretty much checked out. Almost 8 seconds in hand over Kiko Porto, who runs second right now. Lafuge in third, but man, it's like, I don't know if the handle went away on Porto's Toyota Supra or not, but or did the 76 come alive? But anyway, you look at it, great run for the 76 in BSI right now.
Certainly so. Comes to the championship from Spec Miata Racing initially, which does my heart good. Then into Toyota GR Cup with a little bit of MX-5 mixed in. Has done the MX-5 Cup race here at Daytona, which is always spectacular.
Oh, she's there.
Sure
she's
is.
There.
This looks like the move. Got to the inside.
All right, it's going to stay like this all the way to 7, all the way to the bus stop, and we're about to find out who's got the power and where do they have it. And then what we're going to find when we get to the brake zone is who's got the better car under braking and who wants it.
Right. Are they willing to go in side by side with the reprofiled Le Mans chicane?
Who wants it, Ryan? She's got it.
Yeah. Samantha
Great job.
Ooh, problems for Woolridge. This was the 4th place car in LMP3. A pretty big gap back to the next car in line, but, well, there is Thenis coming through.
It's the International Horseshoe, and you know, a lot of times you get up high coming in there, you get a little late with your brake, and you come up high, but go back. This is
not done
this is
yet.
We're not done. Now, for Samantha Tan, the Ferrari's up high. She needs to stay there and not let him do that. Stay there, stay there, stay there. See if she can get back underneath him. Man, I'll tell you what. So obviously, Perez Combat got the run off of the horse, or the Le Mans chicane that time. Got the run. Problems for the 68 left front is locked up.
Yeah, that's Ian Porter. Had been running 5th in class.
I don't know if there was damage and that was a piece of bodywork underneath the left front. That's why it wasn't rolling. Or if there was a problem with the suspension, we'll try to go back and find out. But meanwhile, this battle continues to rage here at GTDX.
How frustrating is it, though, Brian? She worked lap after lap after lap to get the move done, only to find herself back behind again.
Well, you got to think about, where you're placing the car, too. So you know that on the banking, you're going to have that draft. Take a look at this. Oh, she got it deep there in the International Horseshoe. They made contact that time, pretty significant contact.
She's probably lucky he made the save there, because if he goes around, that's likely a penalty.
Yeah. She's saying, don't spin.
That's right.
Don't spin. So the 68 there, we saw that locked up left front tire, so maybe a suspension.
Tie rod, I think, could be the issue.
Yeah, that would make sense. All right, Samantha Tan. See how she plays this. She's got the 89X Aston Martin in front, and I think Perez Compact may have played that pretty well, kind of lifted there in the middle of the chicane to keep the gap there so he didn't get balked coming off the corner. But Tan has a good run. What can she do with it? If you're Perez Compact, you want to stay low. Don't give her the inside into one.
Diaz has been really impressive in my eyes. First race at this level. Their usual closing in to make this a 3-car battle. 3rd, 4th, and 5th in GTDX, all on your screen. This time, a little more breathing room for Matthias.
Man, usual's there. He is there. Now this has turned into a 3-car battle, and for Samantha Tan and her BMW, she's got to have a little focus backwards as well as the focus forwards. She needs to find a way past Perez Compact and aboard that 50 bright red Ferrari. She needs to get by him and leave the 99 to battle with the 50.
Some traffic to contend with here. How do these drivers deal with this? This is a GT4 GSX class car. Stays nice and wide to let the GTDX cars play through. I don't think anyone really gained or lost. If anything, Lujuel is closer than he's ever been. Ferrari at the top end. Very, very stout. Samantha Tan now can't just focus on playing offense. She's got to play some defense here with 3 minutes to go.
Absolutely, and you have no idea how that rear wing is set on the Ferrari right now. I mean, a lot of times in qualifying around this racetrack, you try to run a little more downforce to give you speed and grip through the infield, and then come race time, passes are going to happen on the super speedway a lot of the time, so you'll kind of take some downforce out so you can get that straight line speed back. We're not talking, 5-6 miles an hour, but a mile an hour, 2 mile an hour, it matters, right? So you got to play that game, and Musial obviously with a problem on the way in to the chicane that time because he dropped well back, and he was right there on the way through Super Speedway 1 and 2.
And turns Samantha loose to play offense here. As the car drift up high, now back in the slipstream again. But this is where the Ferrari seems to have just the slight edge. Just at the very end of this full throttle section, the gap starts to expand a little bit. Once again, she needs to get close here in the infield and then maybe make the move into the chicane as she did the first time around.
It's the battle for 3rd in GSX. The number 12, Patrick Wilmot, we talked about the fact that he didn't even know if he had this right. Remember, Patrick, small team that he ran with last year, Split Decision Motorsport, they finished 2nd in the championship, and that hats off to them. You get a late call with a team that you've not run with before, and you come to Daytona, and you got a great race like this. This is what we expect out of these two drivers. Gregory Leafouge aboard the 43, that Mustang for Stephen Cameron Racing. What a great driver he is, respectful, clean, lots of experience, and right now Patrick Wilmot has his hands full. White flag next time by for Valentino Catalano.
I think Leafouge is criminally underrated. Anytime he turns up, he's always at the front, and he's been with Stephen Cameron Racing for a long time, typically BMWs, but they made the switch to the Mustangs last year midway through the season, and he's been fast all week. Quite frankly, I thought he would be there to challenge the Supras at the front of the field today, but that's not the way it's quite panned out right now, fighting for the last scraps of the podium.
I kind of feel like what you just said. I think Gregory Leafouge is almost the Elliott Skier kind of guy as well, where you look at it, and I'm sure he doesn't want an improvement or an increase in his rating, and Musial's by.
Wow.
He's gotten by Samantha Tan.
Samantha closing back in, though. Instead of the fight for third, this becomes the fight for fourth. This is great news if you're Matias Perez Compact. Now you don't have to worry so much because these two behind you are involved in quite a scrap of their own.
Yeah, but Musial's on a run, man. He's got a good car underneath him, that purple and green Ferrari. Great livery on the side of it down into turn one. To me, it looks the better balanced amongst those three cars. Understand Jackson Lee had a slight mechanical issue a few laps ago. That's what dropped him back. He had been having a good run. Last lap, white flag is out for the number 30, Valentino Catalano. This team, Gebhardt Intralogistics Motorsports, showed up in Gainesville, Georgia last year at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, and what a great showing they made there. Palmer was second in race one, Catalano was third, and in race two, Catalano was second. Palmer had been there, made a mistake in the ladder goings and lost a couple of positions, but you talked about it earlier, Ryan. This team, very experienced in LMP3 machinery, and I would think for a Valentino Catalano to come to the United States, come through the tunnel, look at this racetrack, and then see victory just half a lap away. Pretty emotional deal.
He was talking about it pre-race with the interview that went out to the PA, and he said, I had never been here before. I'd only seen pictures of it. Nothing could prepare me for the experience of coming to Daytona for the first time. But he's rolled right in and been immediately up to speed. Now, that's interesting. They've let Palmer come through? No. That must have been a lapped car.
I think that was a lap car. We've got a couple of cars that look very similar. There is Catalano.
Thought maybe they were playing a team game, but with the penalty coming from Palmer, but not so.
Yeah, not so. The 19-year-old German driver, man, around the high banks one more time at Daytona, out of Speedway 3 and 4. He can see the flag stand from this point, and what he sees is a checkered flag that awaits VP SportsCar Challenge at Daytona. Race number 1 of the IMSA season goes to Valentino Catalano. In P3, he takes the win. Brady Golan will come home second. And what's happening in GSX? That's the 76 of Clemens, who had been leading. That car is slow and on the apron.
Porto has come through. Porto has taken the checkered flag. First blood in GSX in dramatic fashion to Kiko Porto.
Man, what happened to Clemens? He is stranded on the apron. Is it fuel? We will find out, but for Kiko Porto, he takes the win here at Daytona. That is huge. Still waiting for GTDX. There is Adam Adelson, and he can call himself a winner at Daytona International Speedway, the World Center of Racing. Congratulations to Adam Adelson.
Fantastic drive, controlling drive, took pole by a massive margin. It was never troubled. His lead was over a minute by the end of this race. So Adelson with a great way to kick off his Rolex 24 a couple of weeks down here in Daytona.
So let me put you in the seat of that number 30 Duquesne, Ryan Marine, 19 years old, second race weekend in the United States at Daytona. What is this win going to mean to this young man?
Has to be everything. This is his introduction to the North American market. Of course, has had success in Europe. He's won that Prototype Cup Germany in the identical LMP3 car, but a chance to come and show this continent what he's capable of, and on the other side of the coin.
I was going to say the other end of the spectrum. Talk about young drivers with such great potential, and you've got this hope, you've got this dream, it's about to come true, and then it doesn't. And we saw it for the 76. Stephen Clemens stranded, leading, waiting to just another half lap. I'm going to win at Daytona, and then guess what? Why do we race all the way to the checkered flag? That's the reason.
Glad you didn't try to put me into his mind, because that seems like an exercise.
I was getting ready to.
It sounds like an exercise in self-harm.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Oh, that has to hurt. You feel bad. You hope it's not something as simple as a fuel miscalculation or something like that. we did go clean, green to checkers, and maybe they didn't account for that, or maybe there's something else the team had nothing to do with. We really don't know, but that has to be heartbreaking. It was a perfect race, well judged and well driven, and it ends up a couple 100 feet short of the checkered flag.
Yeah, I mean, just super good stuff. It's what we expected. And when the GTDX class was announced last year, it was like, how good is this going to be? And I think we just found out how good it can be. It's 3 different classes. Here's a look at the unofficial results, and they're always unofficial. And the biggest race might be a tech, right? You know, you got to clear tech at the end of it. But unofficial results, Valentino Catalano, the 19-year-old, takes the win. Brady Golan, great run to second. And for Marcus Palmer, third is going to feel like a loss for him. He had that second place locked down. The mistake, it was his, right? I mean, it was his mistake at the start to jump out of line. So that's going to hurt for him. Looking back through, Adam Adelson had the win in GTDX, and Kiko Porto, the highs, Stephen Clemens, the lows in GSX.
You take them any way you can get them. Kiko had control in the first half of the race, but the balance of power shifted between the Rafa car and the BSI car, and he had to look like he was going to have to settle for second, but for whatever reason, Clemens stopped. Yeah,
great stories all the way through. There are all kinds of drivers that we'll talk about all season long. Matt Siegel, aerodynamic engineering student at Embry-Riddle just across the way, makes his debut in IMSA competition here. And like I said, we'll talk about a lot of drivers throughout the season. Tomorrow's race, a little bit earlier in the day, and I don't think it might change anything as far as the time of day, but what's going to change, Ryan?
Well, the weather forecast is, let's call it ominous. Things can change here in Florida, but does not look like it's going to be Chamber of Commerce weather, at least as it stands at the moment. So enjoy the sunshine, soak it up right now at Victory Lane, because no guarantees it's going to be so pleasant tomorrow.
But the racing will be good one way or another, and hey, Mother Nature throws all kinds of things at you, and you got to deal with them. There are drivers in this field that love the rain. Valentino Catalano right now just loves Victory Lane. You know what else is great this weekend? Always at the Roar, the Scouts, they come here, they have this big jamboree, and it is absolutely loaded with future race fans, and hopefully turning on a lot of them to IMSA sports car racing.
It's a beautiful thing. This event grows year after year. Having races like this on Roar Weekend has been a game changer, and you're right, we see more and more interest growing over the years.
VP Racing Sports Car Challenge, the 3rd season, and it just continues to grow. Now 3 classes, and that just means 3 times the fun on the racetrack, 3 times the excitement. We'll do it all over again tomorrow. And as we said, Mother Nature may not be quite as nice. Congratulations to all 3 of our class winners today. For Ryan Marine, I'm Brian Till. We'll catch you tomorrow for round 2 of the 2025 VP Racing Sports Car Challenge Series from the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway. We'll see you then.